Welcome back to the Intermission Lounge, and man, not quite the atmosphere in the Intermission Lounge feels a bit off tonight. What are we talking about? Oh, okay. Well, we were talking about mouthwashing.
Big feelings incoming.
So I went back and I booted up mouthwashing just to kind of get re-familiar with it, Woolie. And the feeling of turning that game back on genuinely felt like, do you ever get like, I don't know, like, say like you go to the gym and you get like a t-shirt really sweaty, and then you take a shower, but then you realize you didn't bring a second t-shirt, so you have to first put the first t-shirt back on. This was the emotional equivalent of that. Crawling back into this game felt so fucking bad.
Ay. So, yeah, obviously, before we get started here, content warning. Mouthwashing features horrible depictions of a lot, and if you are sensitive towards things like sexual assault and just abusive people in relationships, then be forewarned. Be forewarned that we're getting into it.
Big time gore as well, like just really nasty, squelchy body horror.
So I've talked about this, with different people, and I've played through it. I streamed it, right? And I was immediately upon the conclusion of the game, there was a thought that I had, and I'm gonna bring this one up here too. Just Griffith, Joffrey, Jimmy.
Fair. Wait, now hang on. What is the scale? What does it represent?
Eric Sparrow, Tony Hawk's Underground. Right underneath.
So Griffith is the worst. Okay.
Level of just soul hatred.
Yeah. I even on replaying it, like I hated Jimmy. I forgot just what a piece of shit he is. So okay, look, we'll give a very brief outline here, but the thing is, we're gonna get into this, and
it's a 3-hour game. It's extremely short.
You have no excuse. It's a 3-hour game. It's one of the best video games of the last 10 years. I would say easily. It is a fucking dump truck of emotion. Like, it is horrible, but go play it. Just go play it, and then we'll be right here when you get back. But it is.
I have to.
So you go ahead, Woolie. Sorry.
No. But put together the thought, because I have a lot.
So it's for people who maybe have not played it but just want to hear this episode. This is a game about you are on a spaceship, and the spaceship has basically crashed and is floating in space, and the captain seems like maybe he might have crashed the ship on purpose and is had all his skin burnt off and is in horrible, awful pain, cannot move. And you play as the second in command and are also joined by Anya, the ship's nurse, who's just this very meek and kind little woman. You are joined by Daisuke, who is like this kind of real dude, just this kind of innocent young man, and then Swansea, just
California surfer, bro.
This crusty, old, angry man. Mm-hmm. And it's about the events leading up to the crash and the events after the crash. And it is... a nightmare from several different directions. It's
So
funny. I'm actually writing about it in the current favorite things video, and because I only have a paragraph to communicate what it is, like I can't get too descriptive. Um, and the phrase I came up with is, "It is a game that does not come off."
that's a good way to put it. I like that. I like that a lot. I feel like so, while this is we're discussing it sometime after, we've played it. So I don't have like there was a level of rage inside of me that is currently like I have to stoke those fires a little bit, right? I have to kind of kick it back up there in the details.
Wooly, don't worry, we're gonna get there.
Oh, because and I'm not too worried about it because what I do remember is that this is the shortest game I've ever played that brought my piss to a boil. Mm-hmm. And I really like how effective it is with doing it does so much with so little. And to start with, right, the idea of, Wayland Yutani scope Amazon as a future dystopian nightmare company is, of course, easy to buy into, but is ultimately a red herring for your focus, And you kind of are like getting into this going like, all right, is it the crushing space corporate dystopia that we're heading for? And it's like, no, that's the backdrop, but that's part of the equation. And I'd even say that the beginning of the game, running around that hallway in the ship, I definitely am like, okay, the effects of Kojima's little PT experiment on survival horror will be, the echoes will last generations, right?
Oh, Wooly, have you not experienced the haunted hallway subgenre?
I guess not enough.
So I'm not joking. There is a literal subgenre that has formed around PT of repeating hallways.
Incredible. And
they're good. They're good. Like they're interesting, good games.
But like with just one demo for one game, he's changed the genre, right? And so I was kind of going through it and I was like, well, between this and the weird cartoon horse, I sure hope that this is not what the game is. I hope it's not just PT, space with weird horse monster edition. And
I was like, okay, we're doing cosmic horror. Like that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. And it sets your expectation up and it's like, no, not that either, right? No. And I'm super happy that's the case. You spend a little bit of time with each of these characters, but the psychoanalysis of Jimmy is so interesting to get into. And I think the reason why it resonates so well with people is because we all know a Jimmy.
Yeah, and I think what's like beautiful about the game is that it shows you that like you can't define a person by their worst moments, and ultimately even the worst people can redeem themselves in acts of real heroism.
I mean, just the usage of that language, right? Speaking about that, like the kind of person, just you take what you hear and you echo it back hollow, not knowing or understanding what it means because you've learned to survive by feeding your ego and running away from the world. So Jimmy, the person you're playing as, that we all fucking know all too well at this point, the way he's depicted and why this stood out so much to me is because, like, yes, he's a narcissist, but so many villains are, but the way that he's like a self-pitying narcissist in denial is so particular to like the type of people that I've met in life and I've watched make these exact decisions and situations, right? I've seen the type of person that would rather die than face the consequences of their actions. I've seen them backed into a corner and freak out and lash out and go, no, you are the one that is responsible for what I did. You made me do this. Or how do you think I feel, right? I've seen the levels of, well, Darvo is the term, right? And it's used to describe an abusive behavioral trait that, like, narcissists and people like this will use, which is deny accuse and reverse victim and offender, right? And you take whatever you've done, you say you didn't do it, you say, in fact, I can't believe you're accusing me of doing that. I think about how I feel right now and what you've done to me, right? And it's crazy because we're also seeing how entire governments can do this to populations, right? Entire movements of people can do this.
Listen, but Woolie, the dollar's going to get bounced back, okay? I don't want to hear this shit from you again, okay? Just give him a second. Give him a second, Woolie.
But the level of watching this happen individually is it's so frustrating and crucially important to when you're trying to gaslight somebody, when you're trying to when you basically discover, and again, to talk about, like how an entire government can do this, when you basically discover as a sociopath that words are just noises you make to get what you want. And it doesn't matter what the noises are, as long as it elicits the correct reaction in the person you're aiming those noises at, right? So if you learn that there's a certain series of noises you can make with your face that'll make the person leave you alone, go away, or give you what you want, just make those noises.
Yeah,
and your life will be easier.
Objective important,
right?
I think, like, yeah, there's so much of that is so true, but it's like, to me, and I've actually been thinking about this a lot because I think I do want to do a video on mouthwashing. I want to do a video about like mouthwashing in Silent Hill because I think there's a lot about memory in both games that I think is just really fascinating. But to me, like, if you've never experienced the very particular terror of watching someone you know overwrite a memory in real time, where you're like, wait, no, dude, that is not what happened. Like, what are you talking about?
Reality denial.
And like, it sounds like such an exaggerated thing, but I think one of the real steps to becoming an adult is, I feel like you grow up thinking, oh man, everyone's got good in them and everyone can be helped and everyone can kind of like, become a good person. And I feel like for most people, sooner or later, you encounter someone who cannot, and they will show you slowly that they can't. And it usually comes in the form of this reality denial. It's like, okay, whatever I say, even if I can get through to this person in this conversation right now and show them what's happening, the moment I leave, the reality denial, the memory replacement is going to start, and they are going to start viewing this how they want again. And it's to deal with that for any length of time is exhausting. I have had one or two people in my life where it was a years long thing, and gradually just losing hope that it could change or that anything, and just seeing like the crazier and crazier side of them. And I think the first thing that is genuinely so haunting about mouthwashing is you are playing as one of those people.
Oh, it's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. And, when you see it firsthand and it's so frustrating and it's so selfish and it's insane because you're like, how does someone get through their life like this, right? Never mind, like, some people are just not, like, a lot of people are conflict averse, understandably. We all kind of want to make it through. We want to get home at the end of the day and live our lives in relative peace. But then there's people who are, everything is a totem pole. Everything is a game. Everything is something that can be used to their benefits, and you kind of have that, and they sort of learn to like sound and look and act like people. And what's happening is often it's very interesting because there's subtle, small places where you can see it, right? So you see it in a small corporate environment where you work with somebody who is just willing to step on enough people underneath them to make it a little bit higher up. And you kind of go, oh, well, me and a couple other people, we were all here in relatively the same place, but you were good at hanging out with the boss and at taking credit for work you didn't do and at just rhetoricking, your way into basically being like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing there, but there's more money to be made and more power. So like, fuck it. Let's just let's just go a little diagonal and like see what happens, you know? And that little thing of being like, well, I don't want to like lie and take credit for other people's work and step on other people and put them down and make it seem like they don't know what they're doing in order to big myself up for that promotion means you're not going to get that promotion. Someone who was willing to do that will, you know? And you see little, and then in life, there's more and more of this, right? Where you see people do this with groups of friends and with people, and then at worst in relationships, you know, where you're like, I'm going to like control the other person because they're not really a person so much as they are an extension of my will, you know? So
I think what can be really scary is when you start to see someone with the ability to overwrite other people.
That's it.
Like I have known people, and usually I think it's like, it's not always, but I think usually I'd see it in like romantic relationships between people. But I definitely can remember years and years ago, I used to know this couple, and when one of them had an opinion, the other one adopted it, and it was really creepy, really creepy, and
Very
never the
strange.
other way, never the other way.
And like, you know, it's always weird to see these types of interactions with people, but like when you then, you know, get to see, and you're forced to see it from the first person, the way that it happens in this game is incredible, because effectively, right, there's times, anytime you ask yourself the question about like how do you do that to yourself? How do you sleep at night? How do you, you know, and you see the way Jimmy in this game looks at each of the characters in this ship with a layer of like, there's a predominant feeling he has about them, you know? When you're looking at the way he looks at Curly, who's the captain, you can see that he has this admiration for him in the sense that he's got the power and he commands respect and he wants to have the chair, right? He wants that. But he also despises him because he's jealous of those traits and he wants that everything that Curly has, you know, and why can't it be me? And with that, he has those lines where, you know, he says, the lowest rung on your ladder is the highest rung in ours, you know? And you have him basically wanting all of the accolades, but none of the responsibility, none of the willingness to make the decisions and do the difficult things, because what's appealing is the self-gratification and ego from the outside, you know? And then when it comes to someone like Anya, right? Especially considering everything about that we learn about her, he doesn't see her as a human being, right? She is an extension of a womb to him. That is a problem, because the person that he rapes in this situation and then continues to exist is like, God damn it, why can't she just stop existing? Why can't this problem just go away? And you are stuck in his view, going through the motions of like thinking about the crew and cast, and as you're getting through that, like the closing moments, especially where he's thinking of, he sees the ID cards of everybody on the ship and there's never any of her, right? He can barely acknowledge anything beyond the threat that there might be a baby around, and this big monster of a horse baby thing is the idea deep in the deepest recesses that that's what you're afraid of, is the consequences of what you've done, not the actual person that was hurt by this at all. And of course, the biggest one being when she tragically ends her own life because of the scenario and what happened. He can't, his brain deletes her body from existence. He can't even see.
Look at her body in first person. It's like glitched out and you can't see it because he cannot
reality
even accept.
Reality must delete itself. You know?
There's a moment.
Incredible.
So when I was playing like the first like 20 minutes of this game, there was a moment, and I thought it would take me a bit to get like to a gut punch. But there was a moment that hit me immediately. Towards the end of the game, Jimmy isn't wrestling with what he does to Anya. He's just finding ways to move past it. Like, he's not trying to internalize it. Like, he accepts that he's done a bad thing, but he doesn't feel like there's no attempt to understand it from her point of view or anything. He just, but he says the phrase, we shouldn't be defined by our worst moments. Like, he says that, you know?
We can still fix it. I could still be the hero.
And he says that, and at that point, you're like, you fucking piece of shit. You do not get to say that. But when you're playing the game, one of the first things Anya says to you is a person shouldn't be defined by their worst moments. And you think about the point in the story it's at, and it's like, oh my God, she is saying that because he said it to her. And he has overwritten that part of her. He has convinced her of this thing, you know, and it's fucking disgusting. Like, it's so awful.
I think that, like, seeing how, you know, the dehumanization, like, in effect, and how strongly that goes, to only be greeted with Swansea, who is basically this hard ass, like, the bitter old man who the whole time it's like, what's his problem? And his problem is that he knows exactly what Jimmy is, right? Mm-hmm. And in that quote unquote boss fight, he tells you, he's like, I used to be that guy, right? He relates and understands what he's looking at, and he sees parts of himself, and he's like, basically he gives you the story, you know, and it's like he faced his shit, right? And what when he burnt through it, what was left behind is the curmudgeon you have now, who's a hard ass, but understands what he is, and of course didn't go as far in those cases, you know, as Jimmy, but at the very least has the personality type there. And it's the closest thing you're getting to, like, a real connection towards this irredeemable piece of shit who's Jimmy, like, trying to stop him and trying to shut the situation down. And, like, after he relays what should be the realest potential moment for someone like a fuck up like Jimmy, it doesn't land at all. He hears nothing. It just goes in, it passes and washes right over him. He hears none of it. And it's the last moment Swansea has. And for him to just be like, from the fucking heart, from the depths of his soul, fuck you, man. Like, it was the realest from everybody playing fuck you I've felt in a long time, because it's just the fact that he can't even hear that, you know, he's already looking past it. And you just have to think about the type of person who has lived a life essentially where this has always worked for them, right? The ability to run away from the thing they've done has always worked. It's never been a problem before. So it has to work now, you know, is what you're seeing. It's crazy because you then look at, like, the role that, like, Curly plays in this, and, you know, there's a whole lot to look at there. But he's like, he gave him a chance here because he saw him as a fuck up and he wanted to give him a shot. And, you know, he's like, oh, there's you know, there's a little bit of good in all of us and whatever. And, like, but, like, the type of life Jimmy that would have lived up to this point is one that, like, never hit the friction that would, like, shatter the enclosure of his understanding, basically. You know, there's always somewhere to run to, somewhere to escape to, someone to throw behind you, someone to step on. There's always that in society. There is, you know. I talk about, like, Shutter Island and how I like it as a movie because a big part of what's great about that is, you know, I don't want to spoil for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's very good, but essentially, like, showing somebody that's delusional, like, the world that they believe in and having that crack open before you. And the whole time I'm on the edge of my seat wondering if there will ever be a moment of reflection anywhere. Will there ever be that moment? And right up until the end, nothing.
No. There's a bit right at the end where Jimmy gets this sequence where he's, like, walking around this empty galaxy. And I actually watched your Let's Play, Woolie.
Yeah. Okay.
And you were like, this motherfucker should not be allowed this level of introspection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
like,
crazy.
you're right, but the way that moment hit me was a little different. And like, I think you can kind of just look at it either way. To me, him walking around the empty universe is nearly like he has now deleted anything that could make him look bad. This ship that he's been trapped in, these people, they're all
Interesting.
gone.
Interesting.
He just has this universe, this empty universe where he's allowed to be whatever he wants, you know?
Huh.
And it's fucked up. Like I always remember this is a little dark, but basically in college I had a friend and we were at a party once, and I eventually learned that this person was like not a good person at all, but like they acted a certain way at the party towards me that like I was really not okay with, you know, and it was like upsetting because like, you know, I was with Michelle, I had a girlfriend, and so like I had to kind of say to them like the next day, like that was really really not okay, and like you can never do that again. And they said to me, I was really drunk, John. I don't remember. I don't know what you want me to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
holy shit.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't me. I don't know. I didn't do anything.
That's rough, buddy.
Get out of jail free card. Sorry to hear that or that whatever happened to you. TLDR. Yeah. Yeah. It's a way of being, and the problem, I mean, whatever, we can always go back to the swing set in Naruto for anybody, but you know, if you managed to use that method to get out of, you know, whatever screaming parent relationship, or who knows, right? But you came to learn that this is a tool in your toolbox, and then the parts where it happens to you is supposed to be a lesson at some point that you learn, oh, this is bad, this doesn't feel good, I don't enjoy this, I don't want to inflict that on other people, you know. And that's just missing, right? That data is gone. It's gone. It just never occurred, and or something inside of you is just whatever. It's not there for any reason. The way that moment of like, you know, you don't get to have this introspection is kind of going, is because like at the end when the horse is sitting on the pile and is like, oh, poor you, you know, you look what happened, look what they did. You know, and you're like, yeah.
I believe the horse uses the word misunderstood.
Right? They just don't get it. They didn't understand you.
Another thing that Jimmy does is basically he's the one who crashes the ship because he doesn't want this story about him and Anya getting out.
Yeah, or the idea that like she might have a child.
Or that like he might have to face any consequences for
whatsoever.
What he did.
I would rather kill everybody while stalling for time to figure it out.
The ship, and then Curly tries to save it. Curly jumps into the cockpit. Curly gets burnt up where like he doesn't have any lips. He can't speak. He can't talk. He's not able to communicate. And Jimmy looks at that, and the Tetris block starts slotting into place. And he's like, "Oh, Curly crashed the ship." And that's what he tells the others. And that is so fucked.
And the difference here is that unlike a maniacal villain that's like, muahahaha, Jimmy believes it. Right? He says it, and then it's the rewriting of reality. It's like, no, I believe the thing. And again, we are getting way too familiar with this level of insanity in real life now, where you're saying something that's fucked up and made up, but you then immediately believe it and will fight to the death to die on the hill that you just invented, right? And because the alternate reality is a world of giant gaping holes in the world where you can't look at it, right? The discomfort of facing yourself is like, I would rather just blow my brains out, right? It doesn't matter. So that idea of like, we can still fix it, we can still save it all the way up until the end. You've got the corpses propped up, everyone's already long gone, but God forbid you have a moment of introspection, you know? I was describing how, like, as he walks off camera and you're just waiting for it, I'm fucking Hulkamania ear waiting to hear the pop, you know? Because what you get is like, I mean, yeah, there's a fun little bit there with that I found out afterwards, where it's like the distance that they go off course is so far, if you look at it, that like by measurements of distance from the sun, that they will never be found, right? It's a lost cause no matter what. But there's the part where Curly fits into this that's so interesting, is that to have this type of reprehensible, horrible piece of shit that I've dealt with in real life, that is way more believable than movie villains and cartoonized, types of sociopaths, you have the enabler right next to them.
So I actually watched a few like little things about, like, just kind of, I watched some like plot summaries just to make sure, and there was one or two of them where it was like, and poor Curly did everything he could, and it's like, no,
God,
yeah,
that's insane. The moment something was wrong, you know, I mean, so because if you watched me going through it, I was still thinking of the game being told through a narrative of everyone and not through the lens of the person, so I couldn't understand why we were spending so little time with the victim. Right? I'm like, where the fuck is Anya? The one person who we should be spending time with here. And I'm like, and then it took a while, and then I realized, right? But when we jump into Curly, you get these moments where he's talking to her, and the first time she says what happened, it goes by quickly, and she talks about, you know, how many months it's been. She kind of, there's an implication towards 9 months. And them being stranded and what's going on. And you see, like, it was a bit confusing because I was like, wait, was someone in a relationship that I didn't realize? And then you kind of, no, that's not what it was. That was not consensual. No, that was fucking horrible. And Curly realizes at the same time as you, right? And then his response to what happens is, oh boy, oh man, okay.
A problem.
Okay, we can fix this.
Yeah.
We can fix this. Now hold on a moment. Let's give it a second. We can solve this. Let's all just take a second, right? And it's like, are you out of your fucking mind? What do you mean we can fix this? What do you mean hold on a moment? Like, you know, and so that conversation that they have where they talk about the pixel, right, is so fucking great, because it's like, Anya is describing the space, like, sky, the virtual sky they have, and they're talking about it, and she's like, you ever notice that dead pixel that's there, you know? And he's like, no, I don't. I just see the big picture. I see, you know, he sees the blue sky.
Man, I actually never, I never put that together. Like that. Like, she is kind of the dead pixel. She is this little
She's
piece
the
of
dead pixel
that he can't see. God,
he can't see
damn.
it. He's incapable of seeing it because he just sees the sky, you know? And he's like, okay, the whole thing, we just need the whole thing to work. We just need it all to just look like a nice, pretty sky. And the only thing she can see is that dead pixel, which then expands and becomes the source that it fucking cracks from later on, right? And like, that is such an emblematic moment, because like, he's too busy big picturing. He's too busy overviewing and doing what bosses at companies do when they hear about, you know, sexual assault allegations, right? Things that should involve the police instead involve fucking, let's move you to another department. Let's figure this out. Let's say the right things, and you know, and we can solve this. And you're like, oh, you need somebody like that who lets this behavior happen, gives it a rite of passage to continue happening, doesn't fucking stop it and nip it in the bud. And as a leader, especially with more like oversight and ability to intervene in these situations, you just sit back and let it rock because you know you just wanted to give him a shot. You saw somebody that was you saw you know your you know relative that you're like, yeah, let's you know, like I think I he's got potential and he had a few screwed up sometimes, but you know, and you just refuse
Are we
to
really
see.
going to let one bad decision ruin the rest of his life?
That's it. You just refuse to see it. He closes his eyes to it, right? And what happens when he fucking crashes and burns his goddamn skin off? You can't close your eyes to it anymore. Your eye is stuck permanently open. You can no longer pretend you don't see it. The only thing you can do is see it. You know, I saw some interesting points of analysis about like that, where it's like, yeah, he can't look away. If you want to look at the
because he is always his eye is always following you as well whenever you're in a room.
That's it. You know, Anya, and the fact that her eyes are kind of like bulged out as well is a little bit of like, oh, she's unable to ignore it either. You know, there's just that little there's that detail to it. Something else that was really cool was there's a game of Ludo on the like Sorry, the board game, and you can look at it and see each piece represents a person on the staff, and you can see how the pieces progress as you go through each chapter. And they start in uneven places where Swansea's been around the board once, and Anya's just getting out, and Daisuke's at the beginning, barely knows how to play, and Jimmy's on the board and he's moving. And Curly's not playing. He's just watching. He's not touching. And then you see the pieces make a little bit more progress, and Daisuke moves, and immediately Anya's knocked over. And her pieces are just knocked and fucked up right away. And you, as the characters go throughout the story, the placement of where they're at and how many pieces they score and whatever represents where they're at. And Jimmy keeps it moving. Jimmy never stops. Everybody gets
keep moving. You gotta keep moving.
Little details like that are so cool.
Yeah, no, it's a fucking incredible game. I actually I got an email from Make Ship. I'm after wasting my money on some fucking plush thing. It's some YouTuber, I don't even remember who, but like not like a good YouTuber, like one of them low YouTubers, I call them. Do you know the kind I'm talking about, Woolie?
Yeah. It wasn't you didn't get a U2's action figure?
That's a quality fucking product. Okay? But Makeship, they had the official mouthwashing plush they're doing. And I clicked into it and it was Anya. And I genuinely felt like good for her. You know? Like that is how I feel about this character. But you know, one thing I actually really love, if you look at the mouthwashing fandom, there's like a lot of AU, like alternate universe, and a lot specifically of Anya getting to live a good life. And I think there's something like really nice about that, because it's like she got so horribly fucked over in this game. And the idea that there is a life that she gets to, like an alternate version of her that gets to be happy after everything she has been through in this, I think is like, it genuinely kind of warms my heart.
I'm glad that that's what you got, because that's not what I saw.
Yeah.
I saw the weird, extremely uncomfortable fans shipping Anya with Jimmy.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure, like, I told you about the cosplay couple I saw at MagFest, right?
Right.
Yeah. Look, fucked up shit, like, as someone who has studied a lot of fandoms, there's always going to be fucked up shit in fandoms. Always. But I don't think a fandom should be defined by the weirdos. And I think there is genuinely so much beautiful artwork that came out of, like, just this 3-hour game. You know?
No, I totally get that. It's just when I saw that, and it's like I was not prepared for that, and it's like, that's fucking crazy. How is that your takeaway? That's weird. I can't believe that there's more than a couple examples, unfortunately.
So I think some of it is people trying to be edgy, and then some of it I think is just people genuinely exploring those relationships within themselves in a way that, like, I don't think is necessarily indicative the person's like a bad person or anything. It's just people explore in those spaces. I don't like
Yeah,
it, but I
no,
don't care either.
I have friends that I know from back in the day that like their primary way of engaging with media they liked as fans was to RP the characters from them,
Yes.
right? And it was like that is how you like if you like something enough, you start RPing it. And I was like, I don't relate to that. I don't engage with my media in that way. Certainly nothing wrong with it for sure, but and part of that always involves like putting some of yourself into whatever you're playing or whoever you're playing or sorts. So I understand that there's these things that can go places and explore and become things or sort of sorts.
There's also the thing where like some people are always just going to be attracted to shitty, dangerous people, and
I guess
they are like that's not something that like that is just something historically you can look at over and over and over and over. You can look at the amount of love letters serial killers get. You can look at like all this kind of shit. There is just something in people that likes to come close to danger and like domesticate it in some weird way. I don't understand it myself. I've just seen it enough.
Yeah, I've recently gone off on the weirdness of like when true crime fandom hits that weird admiration point when there's fan cams for Jeffrey Dahmer and there's like you kind of lose the victim in the fervor of like being a fan of the thing. There's a great episode of Black Mirror that touches on this that I fucking love because it actually was one of the first things I saw calling this out as I looked around and felt that we were getting into this weird space. But this is all an aside.
So there's the last thing I'll say on it. There's a video essay from YouTuber ContraPoints about Twilight.
Okay.
And it's a 3-hour video, I think.
Right.
I think it's maybe it's 2 hours.
I've heard of this, yeah.
And it is genuinely a really brilliant look at like why people, and I think this video is expressly about like why women tend to be attracted to this idea of men that are kind of a little dangerous to them. Mm-hmm. And it's a great video, and it genuinely, like, one of the top comments in it is, I think this video rewired my brain. And it's kind of it's good because it's just looking at the phenomenon and through Twilight, and it's genuinely like a very educational video, I thought.
Interesting.
But
yeah.
I think, Woolie, we're kind of burying the lead here. Look, does Jimmy want to fuck cartoon horses?
My read on that situation right off the bat was, oh my god, he's a brony.
I actually saw a comment on your video being like, as a brony, we do not claim him.
Yeah. I thought that was the case, right? Well, in fact, the whole time I was thinking about it, I'm like, is Jimmy meant to just be a horrible, terminally online type of, flavored sociopath? Is this an internet sociopath? Is this someone that's been posting, and stalking people and getting blocked? But no. So the creator did an interview later on and basically said something to the effect of, actually, we did not think of we were not thinking of My Little Pony at all when we wrote that line. It was just meant to be him not taking the test seriously.
So, okay, that's interesting because that is the reading I came away from it this time around. The first time around, I was like, oh, he's a gross brony. Now, on this reading, what it feels like to me is him already testing Anya's boundaries. He's going to write this inappropriate thing on the medical form that she has to read.
Yeah. And he's just fucking, he's just fucking off with it, right? Mm-hmm. And it just happens to overlap, with Brodies as a thing. And we've had, one or two examples of like, I think the infamous post is like, I never really quite understood these historical figures until I saw Pinkie Pie photoshopped into them. And it's World War II photos with My Little Pony characters replacing victims. And it's like, or there's one of Vietnam, for example, and it's just like, oh dear God, what wrong has happened inside to get to the point where that's how you empathize not with the human being in the photo, but with the My Little Pony, you know. So I was just like going, like, I was like, are we going in this place? And it was like, no, that wasn't intended, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
But there are things where like something like where you look at like when the sleeping, like, hey, the sleeping quarters are like blocked off, and it's like, yeah, like immediately after what went down, Anya's not in there anymore, right? And and then I think like at one point you see like where everyone sleeps, like on the ground, and her sleeping bag is far away from the others, and it's over by the horse that reacts when you approach it.
Oh, that's so good.
Right?
That's her alarm.
That's her alarm. It's crazy, you know? Little things like that.
And
little things like that.
One line in it, and I don't know why this line hit me so weird when I played this game first. It felt like it was the feeling of like a brick dropping down a well, where I could feel it like hit something, and I was like, huh? And it's the line, it's like, why do we have locks on the cargo hold but not the bedroom?
Yep. Right? And
horrible.
And there's your little touch of fucking corporate Wayland Yutani scope Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a little bit of that for you. But that's that one, man. And like, who would have thought, right? That imagine you're watching The Shining and you're watching the axe scene and you're seeing the axe coming through the door and you're seeing here's Johnny, and you're like, the Axeman is correct. Right? Swansea with the axe is right.
So, as a side note, Woolie, let me tell you about a very particular corner of YouTube that likes to there's a video on this. I think it's by a guy called Eyebrow Cinema. I cannot remember. Fuck it. But it's a video about how there's an entire subsection of YouTube that is interested as reanalyzing The Shining, and it turns out that the victim was the wife, or the villain was the wife.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, no, at the start of that game,
Okay.
you see Swansea with the axe, and you're like, okay, we're not doing cosmic horror. We're actually doing this asshole he's gonna go crazy and attack everyone with an axe. That's the horror of this game.
And he's a drunk, right?
Yeah.
He's an alcoholic and he's off the wagon. So now we know, oh god damn it, he's out of control. You know?
And then by the time he starts using that axe, you're like, good.
Right? And then you see that moment too with Daisuke, and you're the fact that it's like, nope, you lead him into that. And that's the one moment of regret you seem to see Jimmy have. And it's only through watching Swansea basically put him out of his misery, right? Because he's beyond fucked at that point. And then when you're in the recesses of Jimmy's mind, where are you escaping through? The vents. The place that he sent Daisuke to, right? And in the vents, while you can't for a second think of Anya, what do you see? A little shrine, a little photo of Daisuke and some flowers, you know? Because, gone so young, you know? And there's a little bit of, yeah, it's such a tragedy that what happened to him, you know? And that's the closest thing he has to a feeling, you know. It's incredible. I feel like the bits where you're just seeing him like putting Curly through it and having this weird like, it's okay, buddy, you know, kind of thing. It's just. It's such it's such extreme love and extreme hate at the same time, basically, you know, for everything that he wants to be, but what he can't become, you know, and is incapable of becoming. But even then, the thing he's aspiring to be is a horrible leader,
Yeah, and it's the stuff as well, like, I guess it's down to me. And it's like, no, no, no. It's not down to you. You are not the hero. You fucked everything and you can't even process it.
Yimpy can never be hero.
Yimpy can never be hero.
Hold on.
Yimpy!
Fuck this dude. Fuck him.
Oh my god. But,
Yeah.
it's like it's just an incredible game. Like I really want to play through it with Michelle because I'm just
Oh,
I am
yeah.
curious to see what she thinks of it.
I definitely recommended it to Punch Mom right after we played it. I was like, "Yo, go watch this. Go watch this. This is gonna be this is a good one to talk about." You know, there's so much here, and there's meat on the bone for like. Then you just go and talk about the Jimmies that you've known in your life, you know, and I
think that is it with this game. How many Jimmies have you known? That is the multiplier.
Yeah, I know. I've known a couple, but there's one in particular where I'm like, not only are you a Jimmy, but the one I knew is capable of the things that Jimmy did.
Eesh.
And that's where it landed. Was I'm like, I know that person who gets through life that way, and I know that if push came to shove, they would and were capable of doing the same things, you know? And that's where I go, the person making this game has been through some shit, has seen some shit up close, and knows it all too well.
Absolutely. Man, you know, it's funny because like when I think of my Jimmies, I would say one was not quite that level. One was like on the doorstep and the other actually super was. And I think it's interesting when you kind of line them up like that and see that commonality, because it's nearly like the problem here is an inability to see other people as people. And that starts with the weird, like, not being able to accept responsibility and ends with you being able to do just the most horrible shit to people and not take into account why it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. Like, if you're able to dehumanize, right? That right off the bat, that's step one towards a lot of horrendous shit. It's always that first step. And again, we don't know, we can fill in the blanks, you know, as to like how you got to this point, but it just says a lot, I think, that, you know, the lengths you're going through, there's so much more work put into easing your own emotional stress and turmoil and like softening it and making yourself feel good and comforting yourself than doing the basic, like, hey, Anya asks you to help feed Curly, and just the simplest little, can you just help feed him? And Jimmy's like, God fucking damn it, do I have to do everything? Fine. Ugh. And just hates him and shoves the food down his mouth, right? And is making him suffer and doing this whole thing. And like, you're asking him to do the littlest bit while everyone is basically facing their deaths, you know? The little bit of help you ask, he can't. And like, that's so, it says so much, you know, of like someone who wants to be the captain. But when you have to actually go do a task, feed him, that's it. Mm-hmm. You can't get through it without pissing and moaning and belly aching about it, you know? There's a great detail, and I say we can put it on this one, but apparently when you're fighting Swansea in the graveyards, the moment, if you lose 10 times, you unlock an achievement where he shoots you the whole time, like he kills you 10 times, you unlock an achievement called the good ending.
Wow. What a fucking game.
What a game. What a game.
I guess, like, in talking about Jimmy's, I guess one thing that kind of keeps tugging on me is, like, the idea of the Naruto swing.
Yep.
And, if people haven't seen Naruto, basically it's a swing in Naruto that everyone has their sad backstory on,
I
right?
always make fun of it. Yep.
Yep. And, it's used to explain several pretty heinous characters. But to me, I totally understand hurt people, right? But at the same time, I've known a lot of people who have been through some real fucking shit in their day and turned into some of the strongest, most amazing people I know. I think what creates Jimmy's is an inability to accept one's responsibility for one's actions. But I also think an incubator for Jimmy's is when everyone around them lets them away with the little things.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing I really try and do now is if I have a problem with someone, or if I think like if someone who's close to me did something wrong or did something that like hurt me or another person, I will really try and have those uncomfortable conversations with them and really try and get to the point of like, listen, you cannot be this way. And I would really want the people who care about me to be willing to do the same. Because that is the only counter to this.
I think
and
so.
And like, I think Curly's entire character is ultimately a good guy who failed to do that. So he's not a good guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's interesting because, different creators have different takes on forgiveness and what it means and redemption and all that. And we've touched on it a couple times. I mean, most recently with Invincible, the no killing rule versus, the potential for, good from people in the future that have done horrible things.
We've started a forgiveness era.
There you go. So there's always an interesting conversation to be had there. But I just like, one thing is for sure is that, I think it might be, it might just be about the product of me and who I am and the dominoes that led to me being here. But I feel like knowing what made someone become that way doesn't then make the rest of the dominoes okay.
No.
And like, I believe there are lost causes. I do. And I believe there are situations that like you can look at it and go, I think it's horrible what led to you being like this, and that there's a part of this that was not your fault. And I don't think that's going to affect the outcome of how I feel this should go. Like I can separate these two things from each other and go, yeah, that's tragic. That sucks. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like I think life is weird like that. And
you're totally right though. Like I have had the conversation with people of like, that's hard. That sucks. I'm sorry. I cannot have you in my life anymore.
100%, right? You're allowed to want that peace. And there's nothing wrong with, looking around at your life like I did and realizing that things are going okay. And the only negative point was Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only point of stress, contention, danger, threats, red flags. And I kind of had to go, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense, and I just had to write that off.
I remember being at a party not long after the Jimmy was expelled from my life. And I just had like the best fucking time at that party. Like genuinely just one of the... I still, like, it's years later now and I still remember it as just like this fucking so good. Just like, the whole night I was like, why does this feel so good? And then I was like, because the Jimmy isn't here.
Yep.
And all the weight, all the tension they would bring in from having to constantly deal with this like puzzle of a person who is constantly moving pieces around you was gone, and it felt incredible. And I think the real success of Mouthwashing, like beyond everything it does, it just shows what happens when a Jimmy is allowed to exist and thrive in isolation in a space like that with other people.
Yep. Unchecked. That's it. I think this game goes on the same list we have for BoJack, where it's like the realer, and the longer you've been alive, the more real shit you've experienced, the harder this is going to hit for you, you know?
Yeah, I can totally see someone like maybe a little younger with a little less life experience playing the game and kind of being like, man, that Jimmy sure is a jerk. A real jerk.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that Norm Macdonald bit about Hitler?
Yeah. For me, the worst part is the hypocrisy.
The more I read about this guy, the less I like him.
Yeah, someone should do something about that guy. I think we should kill him. He's a real jerk. You know? Not a good guy. You know? Yeah. Yeah, incredible stuff, Mouthwashing. And you know what? Again, we just spent like half the game's length, you know, discussing it of sorts. So get in there, go play it, and I greatly look forward to whatever the creator does next.
I thought you were going to say my video essay about mouthwashing. Okay, that's fine.
Way to strike while the iron's hot there, John.
Hey, I strike when the iron is ice cold, and it's all I've ever done.
Damn straight, that's the brand.
Okay. I think that's going to do it for today's Intermission Lounge. It's good to get a soul destroyer in there every couple of months, isn't it, Woolie?
A feel good chat about the good things and happy times, you know? Just poor victim, you know? Poor old Jimmy. Misunderstood. His star will shine among those in space brightest.
That's definitely what the game is about. Goodbye, everybody.